So anyways, welcome everyone to Startup Grind. Because of the confinement and coronavirus, we're hosting this series of online events. Usually we host a monthly event where we interview relevant people in the startup ecosystem, founders and investors mostly. We had the pleasure of hosting David back in October 2017 in our first annual conference of Startup Grind Barcelona. And we talked about, you had recently announced a big round, if I remember correctly, something around 20 to 30 million. And it was a great time for Typeform. I remember that was sort of what you were booming there. But your company has been around since, I think, 2012, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the product was released in 2012.
2012. That started as a sort of a project for a client because David is a designer. He has a co-founder, Robert Munoz. You're not originally from Barcelona. One of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because Typeform sort of represents one of the first successes of the second wave of startups that are co-founded by an expat and a local, right? Okay. The first wave of startups in Barcelona was in the late 90s and the early 2000s. The success of these people brought them into being co-founders or serial entrepreneurs or angel investors in the second wave. But there were also new players. And in this second wave, we find companies that are much more international, global from the first moment, from the first day. Completely opposite to the first wave of startups that were mostly local staff, like Grupalia or Subtonic or InfoJobs or things like that. They were regional, local for Spanish-speaking markets. Whereas in the second wave, we find you, Typeform, there's Cantox, there's TravelPerk. There are a lot of companies from Barcelona representing this sort of combination between a local, a Catalan co-founder and an expat. So if you want to give a little bit of an explanation, how did you arrive here and why did you co-found it with Robert before we go into the topic?
I mean, maybe the first thing to say is that I think I arrived at a time where a whole bunch of other people arrived as well. I think like Barcelona started pulling a lot of people around 2007, something like that. I guess I was part of that wave. My story, it starts in Belgium. It goes to the UK because my mum's British. And then eventually through South America, where I actually started working in design because before that I was a musician.
Yeah, I remember that.
I started a web design agency in Bogota, Colombia. And that's where I really started playing around with interface design and product design. And eventually I decided to move to Barcelona, and it was because I saw a TV program on the TV in Colombia one day about Catalan food, and I was I have to go there.
So our marketing is good.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a foodie, so that pulled me in, and I was going to move 2 years after seeing that TV program. And 6 months later, I had moved here with a 6-month-old kid. And just the pull of Barcelona, for me, it had a lot of great mixture because I'd spent many years before that in London. And I was tired of Colombia. I didn't want to stay there. It was kind of hard for me to work there. So Barcelona kind of struck a nice mixture of it was close enough. It's in Europe. It's pretty centrally located now. I think you don't feel it's that much on the fringes anymore. It's cosmopolitan. The weather's great. You're next to the sea. You got the mountains. It's got great culture. It's got so much to offer. Exactly. And it's such a beautiful city. So I understand by many people around the time which I came also kind of streamed into Barcelona. So I guess that's why you started seeing a stream of people. And also I remember at the time when I moved telling people hey, I just moved to Barcelona. Everyone's yeah, wow, Barcelona. Wow, what a great place. I
party, right?
Yeah, no, everyone seems to love Barcelona. It has this this magic dust around it, internationally. It's everyone always raises an eyebrow when they hear
I always say it's probably not the best city in the world, but it's everybody's favorite city in the world,
yeah,
right? Everybody loves it.
yeah.
I don't
I
know what
think
we get.
it ticks so many boxes actually.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there are cities which are better at things than Barcelona is, but in terms of like an all-round city, it's not too
That's
big, it's not too small. It's just got a lot of things.
that's why I always say we're an 8 out of 10 in every category, probably, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Just one quick thing. After we've received messages from the attendees that we didn't send a correct link. That's why we're not seeing a lot of people
Okay.
joining. So we're sending apologies for that. We're sending a new link right away. So we'll see more people coming in. And that's it. Oh, we've got a lot of people doing on YouTube. So not so many here on Zoom, but they will be coming in. Anyways, so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up is in Barcelona, they say in words of, for instance, K Fund, you know, the Spanish VC, they say that Iñaki Rola always says that in Spain, we've got 3 startup ecosystems. There's Barcelona, there's Madrid, and there's the expats in Barcelona, right?
Okay.
And one of the things that really strikes me is how you behave as a company in Typeform is that even though you've been, you know, an integral part of the ecosystem, you're really well connected and everybody knows you, you've always been playing like on your own. Like you've always been out of the spotlight because you wanted you are now, you've been in Poblenou for many years. You want to be in your own office there in Poblenou, which is not surrounded by many startup things. It's not, you know, it's not Piero 1 in Barceloneta, for instance, or it's not the Plaza Catalunya. Why did you take that decision? Is it kind of like a distraction thing, or just because it's
You mean
cheaper? It's a cultural thing?
you mean the location of the office or the
Location, yeah.
Okay, well, there's two things because you mentioned that we're not that active in the startup community. So,
Yeah.
I mean, location-wise, we just found this fantastic space, which is just on the edge of Poblenou in Bac de Roda with Gran Via, and
Yeah.
we just thought it was perfect. So for us, we wanted to be central enough, but we didn't have to be in Poblenou. We also looked around Poblenou, and we would have got something in Poblenou had we found it, but we found like the right space on the edge of on Bac de Roda. But we have 2 offices actually. We have our old office is still in Poblenou, and that's the one that we moved out of. But we kept and we split the teams across those 2 offices. And then in terms of us like being a little bit apart from the ecosystem, I guess that's kind of mine and Robert's characters more than anything. I don't think we're not great networkers. I think like we just prefer to maybe just like get on with our work and do stuff, and we don't like all the publicity and so forth. So I think we've kind of shied away. And for example, in the last 2 years, like I refuse most interviews just because like I want to focus on work, and it's not that I'm trying to be difficult. It's just like I'm not interested in building up my personal, let's say, persona. I'm more interested in just like adding value, serving customers. And if I have to talk about it once in a while, like I'm doing today, then I'm okay to do it. But there are founders and CEOs which just go around conferences the whole time, and that's good for them and good luck to them. That's not something that I've wanted to do or be that active in the local community either.
All the more reason to thank you for your time and for joining us in this interview, because Typeform is sort of it's a weird phenomenon because it's a company that is perceived to come out from the US. So everybody thinks you're from the US, yet you are from Barcelona. Like even the CEO of Starbrand was like, "Oh, you're going to bring Typeform from the US to your conference in Barcelona?" It's like, well, they're just, you know, a bunch of metro stations away. So how did you achieve that? I know that Paul Campillo played a key role in that, but you achieved that sort of like tone and vibe, or, you know, attitude from a like Californian vibe.
Yeah, I think that's from our early days, to be honest, because I think the standard of products which are coming out of Barcelona is far superior now than when we first started. And I think
Definitely.
we brought like design as a design first culture to building a startup in Barcelona. And maybe there weren't that many startups doing that at the time. And maybe now you're seeing like the design is super important. So you see well-designed products coming out of Barcelona. You see more and more good product designers coming out of Barcelona. Whilst at the time, maybe, you know, because we've been going, what now, 8 years, And that's a long time in tech. And back in the days, like there wasn't that much of it. So that's why I think maybe people just automatically thought maybe we were from California. But I think it's probably people from Barcelona or surrounding Spain that thought that.
Even people in the US, like our CEO at Startup Grind, he's from California, he's from the Bay Area.
Style of design, or we had like a very clean look, and it's evolved as well. Like we've kind of like marked our identity on our own branding now, and I think it's very reflective of the culture and maybe even Barcelona. So yeah.
And it goes to show that you're a designer. The fact that after stepping down from being a CEO, co-CEO with Robert, you're leading a new project, right? You're leading the new R&D line at Typeform. And if you want to talk a little bit just briefly about Video Ask and why has it become sort of your focus project right now?
So let's just say that I got into doing Typeform not because I wanted to be the CEO or lead a company. Like Robert just had a good idea, and we thought like it would be great to get this into the hand of customers. So we basically built a product. It was Typeform, and someone had to kind of lead the day-to-day business. So we did it, the two of us together, because we were the founders. But we never like said, hey, we really want to be like CEO. In fact, that's why we stayed co-CEOs for so long, because neither of us had the ambitions to be like let's say CEO. So we're both from more product backgrounds, and so I started Typeform as a product designer, and the larger the bigger the company got, the more like the company needed me as a CEO and less as a product designer. So I was kind of just like extrapolated gradually over the years away from like product and away from what I love. And I mean, there's so much detail here, but I grew tired of that dynamic. And I really wanted to get back to product. I didn't see myself as a long-term CEO or like dealing with all the day-to-day things, being a manager. So I wanted to get back to product. And, me and Robert decided to step down like 1.5 years ago. And I knew I was going to go back into product. And I had an idea, which was, what if we could do what we're doing in Typeform, but think of a way to make it even more human. So video came straight to mind. So I started iterating on an idea around how can we do like kind of data collection, data interaction with video. And the idea for Video Ask basically was born. And today what we have is a pretty fully fledged product that does video-driven interaction, a bit like Typeform. You put out a Video Ask, you put out a Typeform, but it's all video-driven. But furthermore, it's about creating relationships with customers. So you put out a Video Ask, you record yourself in video, people respond, they can respond via video, and then you can respond back. So you get into kind of an asynchronous video conversation. So it's really about relationship building. And it's, first of all, I'm having a great time doing this, which is great because I'm back to what I want to do, which is designing products. And I even learned to code a bit. So it's just the closest I can get to customers, and it's just what kind of like ticks my boxes more than being like a manager or anything like that. So
just a quick question on that. What is a co-CEO, just for the people that might not understand? It's like you were distributing the tasks of a CEO, you're splitting them in two?
Co-CEO is a perversion of being a CEO.
It's like replicating tasks or just trying to split them, because in a startup,
there's been co-CEO relationships that have worked. There's been co-CEO relationships that haven't worked. Usually what it is two co-founders that can't decide on responsibilities or which one should go in front. I'm not saying that that's the case in us, but that can be often the reason. And so they split some responsibilities. So for example, with me, I was the kind of CEO more on the product side, although I was still pretty hands-off. And more on culture, and maybe Robert was doing culture as well with me, but much more in operations.
Okay.
And so, we were both trying to act as one CEO, but we were half a CEO, so kind of half as effective. And I think like at the end of the day, when you're a CEO, the buck has to stop with someone. And when you have two people, it kind of dilutes that responsibility a bit.
Exactly.
You're kind of like looking at the other and so forth. And
when I see like two co-CEOs or even three co-CEOs I've seen at the time, is that I always think, why why don't you get like just one CEO and a COO or something like that, right? Because I'm pretty sure you're not doing exactly the same task. But anyways,
yeah. I mean, sometimes co-CEO looks like CEO and COO. So
in operations, yeah, exactly. And how about like, so when did this thought of, you know, letting go the management of the first, from the forefront management of the company cross your mind for the first time? Was it a sort of, I want to focus on the product, as you say, or was it also, I don't think I'm the right person to take this company to the next level?
all of the above, and
Okay.
it's a very gradual process. Like you don't wake up one day and you make that decision. It's like you start feeling that it's not the right thing for you. In my
Yeah.
case, I think it took years to get to that point, just
All
because
right.
also me and Robert were so intrinsic into the culture, and we had created a certain culture at Typeform, and kind of like extrapolating ourselves out of that was not going to be like an easy task. And I think we were afraid of that, of stepping down as well. Not because we were afraid of like, we wanted to be CEOs and like hanging on to our titles or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I was afraid of stepping down because I had a co-CEO and I didn't want to leave him by himself and like push all the responsibility on him. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of dynamics going on. But eventually, I think we both realized actually that we weren't up for the task. We didn't have, let's say, the experience or hadn't seen this amount of scale ever. But remember that we're first-time founders, so we're first-time CEOs as well, and every day was a learning. So we haven't like done that, been through it, done that, the whole playbook. We didn't know. So at some point, like, I think when we got to around 150 employees or a bit less, like it just started really dwelling on us, and maybe we took too long to step down. Also, you have to find someone as well, and we didn't even look. We didn't go on a CEO search.
Yeah.
Just our CEO fell into our lap, really, to be honest. So
Yeah, actually, because this is part of the reason I'm asking this is about, there's this, I don't know how it's exactly called in English, it's the imposter syndrome, right?
yeah,
And we were talking about this with Carlos from Buddy, the CEO of Buddy, and on stage we had this conversation where we both open up and say like, hey, how do you know if you're the right person to take the company to the next level? And he said that he was more often than not having this sort of feeling. And I also have it in my company, even though it's way smaller than yours in Typeform, right? But sometimes I feel like I wake up some of these days that I'm not the right person. I'm not the right CEO for the company at this stage, right?
yeah.
So when was the like the day that you finally took decisions like, hey, okay, we cannot postpone this anymore. We cannot kick the can down the road any farther.
So we got to the decision because the opportunity to step down came about. So
Okay.
I don't know if you know, but Joachim Lecha is the CEO of
From
Typeform.
Social Point, right? He came.
Social Point. He was the chief financial officer and CEO.
Correct.
And Kim was on our board. Was one of the directors on our board whilst he was still in Social Point. And we basically started striking up a good relationship. Obviously, he was in the board already, and we thought it would be great to get him on board as a COO, because we felt we needed someone as a COO. We needed someone to kind of help us with the next stage of the company. Like we kind of going into the scale up stage, from being a startup to a scale up. So actually, we brought in Kim as a COO. And then we realized quickly after, here's our chance. Like, we think that Kim can be the CEO. And so at that point, that's when we decided that it was a good opportunity to step down.
Okay, was it that then it was, I understand it was a decision you took 100% yourselves, right? So it was not like investors sort of suggesting that.
There was loads of rumors around the company, everything like the Joachim was like an implant and all this stuff. But it's a decision that we took ourselves. We decided to bring in Kim as our CEO, and we saw the opportunity to make Kim CEO, and that there was no interference on that.
Also, I mean, one thing that proves your point is that you're still in the company, you're still involved, you're leading these important new products, so things like that. Yeah, I remember there were a lot of rumors, but every big company gets rumors just because, you know, it sells press, right? How did your VCs react to that? They were understanding from the get-go. They help you with searching a new CEO.
No, because we never started a CEO search. As I mentioned, this all happened organically. And of course, the investors knew Kim because Kim was on the board.
Great.
So it was just an easy transition. It just made sense. And, you know, we had conversations with our board members that we didn't feel like, you know, that maybe the time is coming near or whatever. So, but we had never officially kicked off like any search or anything like that. It like all things at Typeform, things tend to like happen naturally and like take, what's the expression in Spanish? Las cosas caen por su propio peso.
Yeah.
That was definitely how it worked with us stepping down.
There's actually a good question coming from the audience. So thank you, Caroline, for the one, because it's really strictly related to what we're talking now. What would you recommend to other startups pursuing Series A and later funding to avoid losing control over the top level kind of hires, right? So C-level hires or senior executive.
Control of what? Of you as a founder losing control of your company?
Probably yes. I cannot answer for her, but losing control of the company, I understand.
I don't know, like. What the advice that I could give to myself would be like, don't be afraid, like you're here to add value. And if you need to be introspective and see at some point, you might not be the best person to lead the company, but it doesn't mean that you won't be valuable. So, you know, don't be afraid. I mean, really, if you're not good enough, it'll become very apparent. Like your board will kind of like, they'll maybe nudge you, people in the company may nudge you and so
right.
So, I don't know. This idea about like trying to like desperately control your company, you can put things in your contract when you accept investment to kind of prevent those things, but that's not the way we operate, me and Robert. So it's kind of hard to advise in terms of like from a perspective of defense, because
also because it's the first company, right? And yeah, you never know. But also it really helps the fact that Kim was already in your board, right? Because other companies bring in an external CEO or external, you know, senior manager, and they go on a, you know, they go searching for this kind of profile. So they bring people who are never been related. So that makes it more difficult to blend and to gel with this kind of people. No?
And Kim was brought in as a CEO.
He started in a different role.
A few months later, he transitioned to CEO.
And then since you decide, like the moment you decided to start this transition for Kim to become the CEO, how long did it take until you felt you successfully completed it? Or is it still going on?
It's still going on, but I think we had a turning point a few months ago. It was tough, the transition. Like we had a really kind of complicated culture at Typeform. I think there was many great aspects, but there was also some really problematic things, which in a way, you know, we wanted Kim to come in and change those things. We wanted to be better operationally. We want to keep the best things about Typeform, but lose some of the things that were really like keeping us behind and certain cultural aspects. So yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was just saying that how long did it take until you felt that you had actually succeeded in or completed successfusly the process of taking over,
like,
right?
It's ongoing, but it took a year and it was tough. Like, I don't think Kim was well accepted in the beginning. There was a whole leadership change as well. A lot of changes. A lot of people left Typeform. A lot of people have now joined as well. Like, it was a big cultural shift that we had to do because some things just at the core weren't working. In my opinion. But you know, there's people on the other side which have other opinions, that's for sure. But you know, we had to make a decision.
I remember reading in this one, I don't remember the book exactly, but they say that if you want to replace the CEO of a company under 100 employees, it takes up to a year.
Yeah.
Around 100 or 100 plus is 1 year to 1 year and a half. Over 1,000, it's more than 2 years. right?
I never heard
So
that, but yeah, it sounds
was
about.
that?
I've never heard that, but it sounds about right.
Sounds reasonable. And how did people perceive this in the company internally, right? Of course, you brought in somebody who was already involved with the company at board level. Then but when he joined as a COO, right?
Yeah.
Why you could understand that some people felt aggravated by the fact that they thought they could be promoted to COO from within the organization, right? Do you think that's something that happened in the company when you try to bring these external roles for senior management? Because that's always, a point of friction between existing employees and
Yeah, no, not in particular, to be honest.
not in this case. Okay. And then when he was promoted to CEO, there was absolutely not the same. In terms of culture, you mentioned that, and that's really important. I wanted to get into that as well. So how did that spread? First of all, how did you communicate that? When was the right moment to communicate it to the rest of the team? Who did it? I take it you did it you and Robert, right? As the founders?
Yeah, we got up in front of the whole company and we just told the whole company, the reasons why we were doing it and introducing Kim and kind of backing Kim up, saying that this is why this is the right decision, etc., etc. And yeah, I mean, it's never an easy thing to like change something. Like, bear in mind, like Kim is very different. He's very different to me and Robert.
Comes from financials.
Comes from, totally different background, but
yeah,
that's got some really strong core values that I really respect.
Yeah.
So it was it's not easy. Like, if it was just another type of another CEO, which looked like me and Robert, but at Seymour scale, maybe it would have been easier, but maybe it wouldn't have changed the way we actually wanted things to change. We wanted some of that balance. Like, Typeform has always been a very emotional company in terms of like emotional design, emotional culture, and so forth.
Even a management, maybe.
Yes, everything was always, there was a lot of consensus, always treating people very fairly, like maybe over fairly, like to the point that like people maybe aren't even giving honest feedback. So
yes,
in my opinion, you need a balance and everything. And Typeform was out of balance. It was always heart, like not enough brain, not enough thinking big. Like, what are the consequences of like being too emotional on everything? So really, we had this analogy of like the heart and the brain, and me and Robert were definitely the heart of the company, but we were missing that kind of brain to balance things out. And that's why we brought in Kim as CEO to kind of balance that, actually.
I remember I heard from one of the ex-employees that quit around that time, jokingly, but they said something along the lines of like, they're trying to turn it into a business now, right? as in it was like the ideal place to work in. It was built by designers, it's very product people oriented mostly, and now there's like rules and stuff, right?
There was so much drama because we created such an expectation of how things should operate, and it just became this bubble that just grew and grew, and just one day it had to burst.
I have been part of a couple of exodus in my previous companies, right? And when somebody like is key to the company leaves us, it kind of like creates a domino effect, right? This person leaves, and then this other, then people start feeling kind of like the peer pressure. Wow, everybody's leaving. Maybe I should leave. I should leave as well. Or all my friends in the company have left. Yeah. How did you perceive at any time that you had like a sort of an internal bleeding in terms of people leaving the company, and how did you stop that, or how did you communicate and manage that sort of feeling inside the company?
A lot of people definitely left because they saw like the old Typeform is changing, and they didn't want to adapt or didn't want to have time, and they'd also been in the company for a long time.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that we had like very little attrition before the change. So we had a whole bunch of people that had been there like over 3 years. So some people were coming to the end of their cycle, didn't want to maybe see a new period through, and they left. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons people, sometimes they're more dramatic, sometimes they're less dramatic, but essentially it's a normal part of like companies maturing up, and let's say the old group of people, many will leave, and this happens in many startups.
Yeah, because I remember like the last time somebody left in our company, within the time frame of a month, 3 people left, and we were 12, so it's not a really big company, right? And so kind of like we had the thought of, wow, something's happening, but it stopped there. It's been 3 years since that happened. Nobody has quit the company ever since, right? So it's but of course that creates some sort of internal tension in management, right? So when did you start acting on that, or did you actually do anything to prevent people from leaving, or you were fine with it because it's like, okay, maybe they're not the kind of people we need now?
I stood up in the company, in front of the whole company, and I said,
Not in front of the door, right?
sorry?
Not in front of the door.
No, sometimes I
Yeah.
literally stood up in front of the whole company, and this was as a founder. It was after
Great.
Humanoid transition, and I said, look, things are different. We're making a transition. If this is not for you, that's okay. Like, it's time to get off the bus. And I actively ask people to get off the bus because I want people to be happy. Like, I don't want people to be here and not feeling comfortable. Like, there's a whole bunch of talented people in Typeform, and they can be as happy in Typeform in another company and add value, and it's totally fine. I always think like your next job is your best job. Like, you always like progress from there. So these are just like cyclical things, like they come in cycles, and it's completely normal. I don't think we need to like over dramatize like people leaving companies and startups, like changing stage and like going through culture changes. It's fine. And like, one thought that I had at the time, like, all these people are leaving, where are we going to find all these like great people that left? And what you find is that more great people come in, and like they contribute, and like they're all great human beings, and
They're motivated. Right?
I think all let's say the new people that have come into Typeform are just as interesting as the other people that left. And it's more people that are attracted to the mission we have, to the vision we have, to the culture, and they want to add value. So I want people to come in the company that are going to do that are connected, and people that are disconnected. That's fine. It's not a drama.
And you would think in an ideal world, there would be the people who leave the company because they're not happy with it, and then the people who stay in the company because they're happy. But there's this uncomfortable group of grumpy people who stay in the company.
For too long.
They're not aligned with the new management, but they don't want to leave the company, and they're literally a pain in the neck, right?
Yeah.
Did you have to deal with these people as well, and how did you manage their expectations? Because they're hard to deal with, and I know because I'm one of these persons.
Well, I hope, I don't know, but I hope that doesn't exist anymore, that situation resolved itself, that eventually the people that were just unhappy for too long, like, decided to leave. I don't get a feeling that that's the case anymore. I think there's a really good positive, like, get to work, like, pragmatic attitude now in Typeform. At least that's what I see, and that's what I enjoy. Like, I've also changed. I think I'm more pragmatic in things. More direct, more honest, more real, less idealistic, but still with ideals, and much more customer driven. Like, we're here to serve customers, not just ourselves. Like, it felt before in the past like it was, we kind of had an inverse model where, or it felt like an inverse model where we had this motto, people first, but it felt like it was always the employee first and the customer last, right?
Yeah. All right.
And that's not healthy. I think, it's customer, it's company, it's team, and then the individual. And that's a healthy pyramid. That doesn't mean just because the individual is at the bottom that they don't need to be treated well. But there is a list of priorities in terms of like the greater good. Like, if we don't do well for customers, how will the company survive? If the company can't survive, how can we pay salaries and keep people working, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a company, how can we have teams which have individuals in them? So
it's not like you're printing money, right?
but it's we kind of had this inverse concept of it, and I think we've got our priorities right now.
Yeah.
And Typeform is a great place to work. It still is a great place to work. You walk in the morning, it just has this positive attitude, and at least that's what I feel. I mean, maybe I'm just like deluded because I'm the founder, but
Definitely.
I don't feel the same way as I did in the past culture. Like I feel like much more like strong about how things are today than in the past.
So do you feel like you're able to concentrate more on the things you like doing as opposed to the things you have to do? Because as a CEO, 80% of your time is things you have to do versus 20 is things you like doing. I would argue it's 95 versus 5, but what's your take on it?
I'm doing what I love, which is designing
Exactly.
and managing a product. Managing means like deciding on the product direction, and yeah, I love that, and I can touch things. I can even touch code, so it's great. I've got my hands on a product, and I just want to add value and give the best I can to the customers, and that translates into value for customers, value for the company, value for teams. So you need to be customer focused. It's so important. Like once you've got that right, then everything flows from there.
I understand that, however, you have retained sort of a say in the company because you're still in the board, right? So that's the way you keep connected to the decision making. So it's not like you have given up on strategy, because maybe people who don't understand this transition.
I'm in the leadership team. I'm on the board.
Correct.
But I'm now an individual contributor running a team of developers working on a product, basically. So
in a way, feels weird that you're sort of reporting to the CEO who should be reporting to you as a founder because you're in the board, right? So it creates this kind of complex relationship. So how did you feel? Over the time, maybe not the first days, I understand that you were still acting as a CEO, and maybe it was Robert, you, and Kim being 3 CEOs because you were transitioning, right? So it was not clearly defined. It was still very blurry. But how about now, like some months in, how do you feel do you feel relieved? Do you feel like, oh, I would do this differently? How do you, this fear of missing out, or do you still get this, I don't know, this urge, or maybe like a feeling that you should be taking over something? No, not anymore. It was relieving for you, right?
Plus, I feel, I can influence the product, the company as a founder by having conversations and giving my feedback. And, hopefully people will take that feedback seriously and act on it, but it's just feedback. I'm there to guide more than anything. So no regrets. I'm actually having the best time in my career actually right now. So
that's great, because you're sort of creating with VideoAsk, you're sort of creating a new Typeform within Typeform, right? So how does it feel in terms of the expectation? Was that?
It's like a little startup within a scale up.
Exactly. It's a startup within a scale up, but it's obviously not as difficult. It's still difficult because you're still trying to create, a new brand, a new product, it's a new team, monetize it. But in terms of comparing it to the first days of Typeform, where you didn't have, revenue, or it was your first company. So what things do you think they're easier right now, just because you're inside Typeform?
We don't have to spend time thinking about funding. Like right now, I don't have to think anything like in terms of management. Like it's just pure product. So in the beginning of Typeform, we were very product focused, but we had to do some management. We had to hire the team and so forth. Now, basically, we have an HR department that does the hiring for us. We have a security team doing the security. We have a marketing team doing some of the work for us on VideoAsk. So it's like a luxury position. Like we have all the services of Typeform, but without the strings of needing to raise capital or doing any of the things that you need to do when you first start a startup. So yeah.
So is it an independent team? Do you plan to spin it off, or?
No, it's within Typeform. It's another swarm, basically. VideoAsk is a separate product completely. So we don't have the dependencies on Typeform, so we can basically move independently.
Okay. But you're in control of the hiring of this team right now, or even in the entire company?
Yes, I hired the team, but I have support from HR in terms of like finding candidates and all this stuff. So let's say I don't have to do personally any of the admin work around hiring people or the groundwork. When I first started the company with Robert, we had to do all that. So now it's not necessary.
And what are you looking for in the people you hire right now? What has changed since the transition? What different set of attitudes, skills, soft skills, or or even roles that you
I
didn't
don't
have before?
change that much, to be honest. Always look for like good people in terms of being humble, honest,
Hmm.
like genuine, authentic. But I also want people that can kick ass and that are really good at what they do. I think the criteria was there at the beginning, and it's still there now. I think maybe I've just put a bit more emphasis in terms of like working with people that I can really communicate with as well, like that are not too insular, that can work well in a team. So maybe I'm indexing more on that now than maybe in the beginning, let's say. So
And where do you see Video Ask and yourself in a few years? This is something that you can branch off the company, or
I don't know.
it will eat Typeform from the inside?
Don't know what does that mean.
And some companies, like especially in bigger corporates, right? They sort of have to reinvent themselves if they don't want to be. They don't want to be. If they don't want to be disrupted. Some of the biggest companies, they have completely changed their business model, and they have adopted something that was disrupting them, like a model of a startup, right? And they have phagocytated the business model.
What I would say is that Vidyask is not Typeform trying to reinvent itself. Typeform has the product has a long, exciting roadmap to go and an amazing vision as a product. It's just attacking the problem from a different angle in a different way, let's say. So in terms of the future, my future within the team, like it's going to scale up, it grow. Like we'll spin off probably another team soon, and well, in a few months, and then maybe my role will start getting a bit more distant, and maybe I'll look at like doing some more R&D work. In fact, the Videos team is officially called the R&D team, which is research, and Videos came out of that, let's say, team. So maybe I will fall back into like doing more like experimental stuff. I don't know, but Vidyask has the potential to be as big as the Typeform product. I think it's really exciting what we're seeing with people going more online. And that's been accelerated by obviously the events with COVID-19. And people are looking for ways to connect and through business, and a tool like Vidyask is really quite an apt tool for that. So
are you hiring actually?
Sorry?
Are you hiring actually?
Yeah, we're hiring.
Okay, because the COVID has affected a lot of people. David, I know that you've got a hard stop right about.
I can go on for a bit more if you if you need. My hard stop was basically I wanted to get back to work, and I planned a work session.
Okay,
so we can go.
Yeah, there's 4 questions accumulated from the people, so let's just go over these 4 questions. Really appreciate that. Maybe this way we'll compensate for the technical issues in the beginning. So, well, one of them was about hiring, right? As a lot of companies have been affected by COVID. But irrespective of that, you're probably the kind of company that used to be the hottest company in the market in Barcelona. So it was easy to attract people for a while. Everybody wanted to work for Typeform. But do you feel like it's not like this anymore, or you still get a lot of applications?
Oh, yes. It's only grown.
It's only growing.
Yeah.
How do you attract them? Like, do you attract them? Do you reach them out directly, or is it something that just you get so much deal flow that?
It's a combination of everything, but Typeform has a really, really strong brand.
Yeah, I know.
Like all this, we were talking about culture change and some like management issues. Like people don't know about that. Like only people that are in the, let's say, involved in that situation know about it, to be honest. So Typeform is a really strong brand and very respected as a product. So we're seeing a lot of people still applying. And maybe you want to know, with COVID-19, has hiring been affected? Is that?
Yeah, maybe that would be great if you gave us some visibility.
I don't know the answer, to be honest. I'm sure the funnel has reduced a bit, but maybe there's some people also looking for new opportunities now. So Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
And outside of hiring, how has it affected you as a company? Because VideoAsk, I take it, has grown because of that, but Typeform overall?
So, of course, for example, Typeform is being used by a lot of small businesses. So, this is a time where small businesses need to fold back and they're kind of canceling their subscription. So that's happened. But we also see a lot of new customers coming in, which are looking to take their business more online. So we haven't seen a big effect from COVID-19. We're still on budget, basically, in terms of like our projections of growth. So no surprises there.
Have you changed your KPIs? Because I take it that maybe now it's not so important to monetize or to acquire new customers that are like paying customers versus
everything's pretty much the same North Star metrics, North Star metric. We still track everything as we have. Basically, I mean, we just the whole company suddenly went remote, and it was like,
yeah, I was going to ask about that.
After, it felt like completely normal. It was okay. I mean, I think also like a business like ours is fortunate compared to other businesses which may be relying on people being face to face. Like, I guess extreme is a restaurant, for example, or a restaurant chain. Like, they can't operate. I mean, there's even some startups in Barcelona which have gone to like almost zero in revenue because
travel companies.
Yeah, their revenue model is just predicated on people moving around. So it's going to be tough for companies like that over the next couple of years whilst the confidence comes back.
Were you a remote? Speaking of remote, a lot of companies have had to adopt it forcefully, right? So I don't know if you were a company that was friendly towards remote. Did you offer like full remote to people, or maybe just only soft remote?
We have some remote teams.
Great.
Fully remote teams, but we didn't, let's say, but that's changing now. Maybe I'm going to get this wrong, but we didn't have like blended teams in the past. We had some fully remote. In fact, VideoAsk is like one of the first team where we're starting to blend it. Like, my team has remote people. And now I think what we've learned through all this is like, you can go remote and it can work, and life goes on as normal. And I think that's the biggest shift in how companies are going to work in the future, because many companies which were scared of going remote, they were forced into actually running a live experiment with their entire company.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I honestly think that the future of workplace has fundamentally changed, and we're not going to go back to what we had before. It's going to be a different new thing. So
remote is here to stay.
It's a what? Sorry?
It's here to stay.
Yeah, I mean,
in Typeform, I understand.
Yeah, no, everything. Yeah, it's a new thing. And we're not going to go back to what we had, for sure.
No, of course, but some companies, they were forced to do remote overnight, but they were not lucky to be a SaaS or a software company or a tech savvy company like probably you are, and you've got essentially, salespeople, marketing people, designers, and developers, which is 100% stuff that can be done remotely, right? Other companies, they don't have, a VPN in place, they don't have the the workflows in place, they don't even have the people that are actually capable of working remotely. So they might be revoking that remote perk from their benefits as soon as this is over, right?
A lot of companies and a lot of people are having a very hard time through this. Like, we're in a privileged position. Like, very lucky in that respect.
Also, another cool thing that I think you guys do, and I think you deserve more credit, is you're able to attract a lot of international people to Barcelona who then stay in Barcelona and create other companies, right? So how did you achieve, why do you think you achieved this sort of international attraction for Barcelona?
I think it's down to a very open culture, and English is a first language in the office. Maybe that's something that wasn't very prevalent in the past. Maybe more companies are doing that now. and we always had a blend from the beginning. So, you know, I remember when we were 30 people in the company, we had like loads of different nationalities. So people were bringing in other people from all over the world as well. So it was like that from the beginning.
Yeah. 2 quick questions to wrap this up, and we're done for today. First one is, how long did it take Video Ads to launch from idea to customer sent? And what was it like to create a spin-off within a company? That's a question from Alejandro.
How long was it before we launched?
Yeah, from idea to delivering it to customers.
So from idea to putting out the first piece of product, which was an iOS app, around 2.5 months. Okay. And then we iterated from there. And then around 6 months, 7 months later, we put out the full product, which was, we went out of beta, put on the business model, and went to market properly. So we've been in the market as a, let's say, non-beta product for 4 months since late December.
You would probably have been faster had you been outside of Typeform, but probably you wouldn't have had, you know, other benefits, right? What's the trade-off?
Would we have been faster? No, I was operating it like as if it was like a new startup. Very few people working on it, just like very quick iteration, very lean. No dependencies, no blockers, very quick decisions.
But you didn't have to worry about financials in the beginning, right?
No.
Yeah, as opposed to.
That's what I'm saying. We were like, in pretty, unique position.
Okay, and the last one, and this one is for me. It's also might be a self-help question, but also to a lot of people in the audience might be relevant. Is what is the 1, 2, 3 signs or kind of like red flags that whenever we identify them, we feel it's time to quit as a CEO of a company, right? When is definitely that thing that goes like, okay, this is definitely the point where you, if you think about this, if you feel like, you know, your job sucks or you're, you know, you're crying at night or things like that. I don't know if, I'm not saying that was your case, but what are like the red lines? It's like, if you cross this line, you need to quit.
Being stressed as a CEO is part of the, it's part of being a CEO. But if it just gets to your core and you're not able to manage that, then you know that it's not a healthy thing. So if really you wake up every morning wishing you weren't the CEO of the company, then you should probably quit. And then, I mean, try to get feedback from people around, like get honest feedback, speak with people, invite feedback. Like, am I doing a good job? Like, am I meeting your expectations? Otherwise, you're just going to live in your little bubble world where you're not sure you're good, you're sure you're good, but or you're scared of stepping down, scared of not stepping down. So 2 things there. And lastly, I think it's just timing as well. There will come a point where you'll just know that the company is better off without you leading than with you staying. Like, it will just feel a certain amount of time will pass and you'll know that you can bring in someone better.
It seems to me that everything like dawned on you, but like nobody told you directly. Because to give a little bit of context, I'm the kind of person who would go to the CEO and say like, hey, I think you're not doing your job right and you should be doing this and that. It should be like, I'm really direct and really blunt with feedback, right? But I know that these days there will come a day where somebody will do that to me, right?
So we definitely didn't get enough feedback. And it's also in reference to my point of the old Typeform culture where everyone wants to be nice and not be honest.
They were not saying this kind of things to you?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I did go to people and say, hey, you should be there. You're the heart of the culture. It's so important that you stay as CEO. And that was from memberships, people from the leadership team as well. But never got really dished out the hard feedback. And I think that would have been more helpful, to be honest.
That's a good point. Yeah, because if you're too maybe too condescending or too, you know, keep this kind of super positive feedback all the time, you don't get across the tough points, right? You don't have hard conversations, right?
Plus,
All right.
who knows whether it's a good decision at the time, whether it's a good decision or not a good decision, whether you should be CEO or not be CEO. At the end of the day, you take a decision and then you see how it is, and then you know a year later whether it worked or not. So, you know.
Irrespective of whether you are CEO or not, I think Typeform is really lucky to still have you around, because you're the heart and the soul of the company, you and Robert, that is. So a lot of success. Wishing you the best of success with Typeform, VideoAsk, and stay healthy. Thank you very much for your time. I think we can wrap it up here.
Thanks everyone for listening, and stay well.
And thank you for taking the time to join our event and sharing your experience with our community. Stay healthy. See you next time, David. Have a nice week.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.